Alright. So, our dog Wesley passed away last night. Um, just so that you know how this story ends. And the main reason why I'm recording it at this point is to make sure that I have, I guess, details of everything saved. So this is essentially like everything that I know of at this time, which is the morning after. So I'll give this to you chronologically. Sarah went to go and get groceries around 4 o'clock or so, sometime around there. And normally when she leaves, he's extremely stressed. He shows his stress by like whining and hanging out by the door, and I didn't notice that much of that during that time. And maybe I should have taken that as a warning sign. I don't know, but I didn't. It's not unusual. Sometimes he is more calm when she leaves, sometimes he's not. But when she came back, I remember hearing that she was back before I heard Wesley bark, which is my usual way of knowing that she's back. And again, sometimes that happens. He apparently whined and walked up to Sarah, which is a normal thing. She picked him up, and then he was calm, basically. We started on dinner. I fed him his food, and he didn't seem especially excited for it, which was a little odd. That struck the both of us as a little bit off. So that was unusual for him because he's usually pretty excited for food, but we figured because it was me giving it to him as opposed to Sarah giving it to him, like it's possible, or maybe he just wasn't feeling especially hungry at that point in time. Like there's a bunch of different explanations for that. And when I say all of it like this, it sounds like we should have noticed it, but all of them were signs that to me seemed relatively normal. So we were playing Baldur's Gate with a group of friends, and Sarah started noticing that it seemed like his legs were bothering him. Like like she thought it was a hip issue because he kept kind of walking around, seemed like he wasn't getting comfortable, like almost like his feet or his legs were hurting him or something like that. We noticed, this is a while ago, mind you, I'm breaking the chronology already, but oh well. We noticed that he was starting to go deaf, and the first time that I noticed that was when we were at my parents' house, and I kept calling him, but he didn't hear me or wasn't listening. We think it's because he couldn't hear me. And I think that was the first time. This was weeks before the events that I'm describing now. So back to where we are. She saw that as odd, so she prepared. She got a look at what local vets are in our area or like local like emergency vet hospitals or anything like that to see if maybe we could get over there if absolutely need be. And every time that it wasn't Sarah's turn in the game, which was pretty significant stretches of time, she would just check to see how he's doing, and he just wouldn't settle. Until around 9 o'clock or so, maybe 9:15 or 9:30. She told me we're going to the emergency room right now. And I got up, and she told me that he was extremely limp. And so she pulled up the directions to the nearest vet hospital, which is about 20 minutes away, which is more time than we would like it to be. And we got in the car, and I was driving, and I floored it. There's really no other way to describe it. It's the fastest I think I've ever driven. The fastest I've ever driven a car, especially when we got to the highway. It was pushing way above what was regarded as safe, but when we were about 10 minutes into this 20-minute drive, so about halfway there, I could start to hear an increase in desperation in Sarah's voice. And she was trying to keep his attention. She kept saying his name, trying to get him to, I can only assume, stay awake. And she kept saying, like, Wesley, Wesley, Wesley. And when she noticed that he wasn't breathing anymore, she started saying, I need you. Don't go. Please, Wesley. That kind of stuff. And he had always had really bad dog breath. He's a little dog. They have a lot of teeth problems, but I remember smelling his breath, and there was some part of my soul that knew that that was his last breath that he would ever take. My mind and maybe my heart hadn't accepted it, but there was something inside of me that knew that he had just passed on in that moment. And when we got to the freeway, I took a turnpike really fast, obviously faster than I should have. And his head just completely lulled, like he was not holding himself up at all. And I think that's when my head knew that he was gone. We got to the last road to the vet hospital, and as we were driving, there was a white truck ahead of us who was going relatively slow. Realistically, he was probably going the speed limit and we were not, but I talk a lot of shit about like truck drivers, and especially like white truck drivers, just because of my experience in Utah, but he saw us flying up behind him and he was the only one who got out of the way through the whole ride. And I wonder if it's because he was a local and he knew that there was a vet hospital, and especially it was an emergency clinic during that time, or near that area, that he was the only one who got out of the way. It wouldn't ultimately have made a difference one way or the other, but I try and remember that through this whole thing, among other things, obviously. And we got to the vet hospital, and I pulled up to the curb. Sarah got out and ran inside with him, and I saw he was still completely limp. Sarah was just carrying him, and he was not. There was nothing there. I parked the car and walked up, and by the time I got in, they had already taken him back, and she was describing to the vet, like, any medications or anything like that, and he's not taking anything. And the vet tech came out after we filled out some paperwork. I swear to you, it was just like paper after paper after paper. Sign this, sign this, sign this, sign this. Like, do you not understand? Anyway, whatever. So the vet tech comes out and tells us that they're not getting a pulse. And they said that the odds of us getting a pulse back with resuscitation efforts is like 5%. And without hesitation, both Sarah and I said, like, do whatever you can. We don't really care about the odds, just do what you can. And they tried, and I called Sarah's mom for her to let her know that he wasn't doing well, and that it wasn't looking good. So after that, we waited there, and I just kind of held Sarah, and the vet tech came back out and said that they've been trying for 5 minutes and didn't get anything, and at this point it's incredibly unlikely that they're going to get anything, and we asked for just another 5 minutes, and they tried for another 5, and they came back out and there was nothing. He was gone. So they led us into a room where they would be able to sit us down and let us say goodbye to him. And we sat in there for a while before they brought him in. He was all bundled inside of a dog bed and inside of a blanket, so all we could see was his head, and Sarah eventually took a paw out because she always thought his paws were really cute. And we sat there for probably about 30 or 45 minutes, just petting him and saying that we were going to miss him and all the things that we were going to miss about him. I let Sarah do most of the talking because, you know, it's her dog at the end of the day, and we sat there for a while. We were saying that now wherever Sarah goes, he can follow her because he always got really separation anxiety whenever she left anywhere. And sat there and I just held her. She kept petting him and kept petting him, and I asked her if the vets told us that when we were ready we could turn on a light switch next to the door. And I asked her if she was ready for me to hit the switch after a while, and she said no, but I don't think I ever will be. So he gave us some extra time and more time and more time, and eventually I went over and hit the switch, and nobody came for like another 10 minutes or so. This is what it felt like. And I went out to the front desk to let them know that they were ready, and they hadn't noticed that the light was green, and they came in and we handed Wes off. To the vet. Sarah said a absolute last and final goodbye to him. And then we left. They said that they're gonna cremate him individually and give us the ashes, so we'll have that here in probably the next 2 weeks or so. I don't know. I have to go look at the pamphlet again to figure out what timeline it is for us. To also make sure that my phone is on vibrate, so that way when they call I can answer, because they have my phone number because I was the one who filled out all the forms. And Sarah's not doing well. She'll be alright, but it's hard. I keep trying to remind her that she had him for 11 years, and she gave him the best possible life that she could. You know, she gave him custom food and took him for walks every day. He traveled to so many different parts of the country. Like, she loved him, and he knew that she loved him. And he died peacefully. You know, there was no slow decline in terms of his health or anything like that. Like, he wasn't in pain. Like, he was normal throughout the day. And something in him just said that it was his time. We asked the vet if there was anything that they could do to tell us what happened, and they did an x-ray, and they didn't find anything in his heart or his stomach that would stick out to them as being the source of it. And we found his... I'll get to that. So that night, obviously it was rough. Both of us went to sleep and tried to go to bed, but we didn't get to sleep until around like midnight or 12:30. Fell asleep holding Sarah, and she woke up around 3, and I woke up at the same time to her sitting up in bed looking at the corner where he always laid down. Oh, when I was taking care of things in the kitchen, because we had needed some things taken care of around the house, locking up, making sure everything was good. The night that he had passed, I came back and she was laying in the corner where he had always sat, just looking at photos and videos of him, holding the stuffed animal that he always liked to cuddle up to. It's a stuffed dolphin that we've named Wobble. I gave it to Sarah when she was on her mission, and after she got back, she gave it to Wes, and he always loved to cuddle with it, so it was in his corner, and she was cuddling with it now. And we woke up at 3, and she was looking at the corner where he always sat, and she was telling me that she was running through all the events in her head, wondering if there's anything that she could have or should have done differently, and I just kept talking with her, making sure that she was letting out whatever she was feeling, and she just kind of talked about it for a while, and is there anything that we could have done differently, that we should have done differently, and I kept telling her no. On the drive over, she tried to give him CPR, but she didn't know how, so she was just trying to give him mouth-to-mouth, but that didn't get anything. So there was nothing that we could do at that point. Just, yeah. So we laid in bed until about 3, and then I managed to get the both of us to go back to sleep, and we woke up the next morning and she was crying. We looked at some photos and some videos of him. We've had plenty of family members reach out at this point and make sure that we're okay and that Sarah's doing all right and everything like that. But I'm doing my best to hold myself together to make sure that I'm there for her, because it was her dog first and foremost. I mean, he was a part of my family too. I mean, you can see on our wedding day, the photo that's here, this is on Sarah and I's wedding day, and he was really anxious to be apart from her, and so we had to take a minute to make sure that he was okay when he walked down the aisle after Sarah. That's another one. I think this is, yeah, that was the third one. We got more than 3. You can see he's tugging on the leash here to get to Sarah on the wedding day. So this was us making sure that he was okay. And we found his poop, the last poop that he took. It was in the house, so clearly he wasn't doing well at that point, but we didn't notice up until it was apparently too late. It was just undigested. It was just his food. I have an untrained eye, but it was slightly mucusy, so maybe he was sick with something or just stress or whatever, but I looked through it and there was nothing there. It was just his food. And we haven't found anything else. The vet took an x-ray. There's no one to blame for it. It just, some part of him said that it was his time, and that was it. So Sarah's doing her best to, keep on top of it, and I'm trying to make sure that she's okay, making sure that she's eating and everything like that, but it's really hard. She's got a lot of friends and family who are reaching out with condolences because they all know how much that he meant to her. I don't really think that there's anything else. Sorry, it was kind of all over the place, but hopefully I captured a lot of the stuff. I keep doing small things around the house that make me think of him. I dropped some food yesterday when I was putting some food away after he had passed, and it occurred to me that our little Roomba wouldn't be there to clean it up after I dropped it, so I just bent over and picked it up. Every now and again, I hear a sound that I think is his bark or is something, and it's not. We're gonna be okay. It's a lot right now. So I'm just gonna try and be there for Sarah as much as I can be, obviously, because it's a lot harder for her. Because he was there before even I was. She had had him for 11 years. Sarah and I have known each other for 9 or 10. He's been there since before I was. He's known Sarah for longer. From sophomore year of high school till now. I don't know. It's just a lot. It's a lot of time, but I know Sarah gave him the most that she could have and the best life that he could live. And that's it. Just wanted to make sure I captured all the details so that they don't get forgotten, I guess. Anyway.